Okay, hello, this is Sam Pollock from Team Fake ID. I'm here with the rest of my team to show off the first playable milestone for our idle tower defense mobile game we're making. The team here, we've got Sam Pollock, Morgan Ethier, Robert Wymer, Lucas Dunster, and Erik Enos. We're going to jump right into the Unity project, and Robert will show off the AI implementation. Take it away, Robert.
All right, cool. So for the enemy AI, we have a couple different enemies spawning. It's all controlled by nav mesh. So they start, so they spawn. They start in a patrol state. We currently only have just the patrol state working, as it's all we really need at the moment. But then as the levels get a bit more complex, we also have a pathfinding state.
Here, as you go, Alex, what script would you like me showing off while you speak?
So the enemy controller, please.
Yeah. The enemy controller. There we have it.
So that is the main enemy controller. So just a couple things we do. So we have a reference to the nav mesh. We have a reference to our state machine. And we also have a reference to our waypoints. So pretty empty in the start method. We just get a reference to everything. We set up the state machine and register the two states. Right now we're only using the patrol state. And then we also get reference to all the waypoints. Sam, if you could go to the patrol path script, please. Perfect. And then this is mostly where all our AI logic's actually happening. So this is just a state of the state machine. So when we enter the state, we get the next point for the enemy controller, and then we also update that in the update function. And then the next point is really just getting the index of the waypoints and then adding onto it, and then we check to see how close the enemy is to the current waypoint, and then if he's really reasonably close, we just move to the next point as well. I think that's about it for the enemies.
Okay, awesome. Next up, Erik Enos is going to describe his work with the tower placement and UI. So I'll just load that scene up for you, Erik.
All right, sounds good.
Okay,
so
starting...
in this scene, I was tasked with making the UI and having the inventory system with the tower placement. And in this scene, you can see that you can open up a drawer on the right-hand side. It gives you options to instantiate towers, and then you're able to place them down on the world. They're green when they can be placed, and they're red if they're not. The road stops them, obviously, from being placed. The other things that I added to the scene are the UI. So you can collect gold off the top of the towers for testing purposes, and it's updated onto the UI. For right now, we didn't need the stone or crystal, so we just did gold for this update. There's also a pause menu. Right now, it is just the menu screen. You can resume the game whenever. Other than that, I think we're good to go to the scripts.
Okay, and where should we start?
Do tower placement first. Okay, so in tower placement, a quick summary of it is I'm using on triggers to check the ground underneath. So it checks the tiles, whether they're a road tile, if they're tagged road or a regular tile. If they're a road, you can't place. If they are, you can place. Other than that, not much really happens here other than changing the colors. So if it can be placed, it's green. If it's not, it's red. In the inventory script, this is where most of the programming is happening. In this script, I am using a raycast to the tiles on the ground. I use that to get the position of the floor, and I use the button functions to instantiate the towers. And then when you're holding the towers, they follow the mouse position where the raycast is hitting the tiles. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, excellent. And now I'm going to show off the field I was using for testing the tower functionality. Oh, just 1 second. I've got to jump into the tower behavior script. And there we are, just for debugging. So here we've got the 2 towers, and each one has a radius, and it checks for an enemy within the radius, and when there's an enemy there, they'll fire projectiles. That tower fires arrows, which pursue the player, and this tower over here fires cannonballs, or the enemy rather, fires cannonballs, which will go to the point the player was last, or the enemy was last found. In this scene, these towers are built from prefabs. The prefabs have these properties that we can use to set different towers and to upgrade further within the tower trees. We've got the aim radius and rate of fire, the most relevant ones for now, as well as the projectile type, which determines whether it's the arrow or the cannonball for the time being. And the target is adjusted during runtime based on proximity. I'll take a look at the scripts that make it work. Start in the tower behavior. So here we have it. This one checks for the trigger enters within that radius. It sets the radius according to what was set in the inspector by the designer. And then on trigger enter and on trigger exit, we set and remove that target. And according to the rate of fire, we'll fire those projectiles and give them the target. And depending on if it's a cannonball or an arrow, they'll behave differently towards that target. As we see here in the arrow's case, it heads directly towards that target and will pursue them as that target moves. When it arrives, it'll destroy itself and play a sound effect. And the cannonball behavior is largely similar, but in this case, instead of following the target game object, it heads to a vector 3, which represents the position the target was at the time it fired, so that the cannonball doesn't adjust its trajectory mid-flight. And now I'm gonna head into the menu scene to show Morgan's work. So Morgan, you want to take it away?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if we go back into scenes here, so menu UI, this is actually the start project or start scene for the whole game, actually. So we'll just tap or get time to tap on the screen there. Brings us into the next window. Each of the buttons here actually are functional for this build. So instructions will actually bring you to the instructions screen, which currently we have 2 different screens for that. And options, these aren't working at the moment either, but they are in the works. And if we go into start, it'll actually bring us straight into the gameplay scene that we saw earlier.
And then,
in terms of scripts,
yeah,
it's menu UI controller. There we go, perfect. So the magic behind the canvases and whatnot in this specific build, they all happen on a single scene. So it's multiple canvases, and I'm pretty much just showing a single canvas at any given time. That can, like, with each on-click function I had defined in the scripts, and they're all assigned to different buttons along the UI. It just hides and shows different canvases, and I could choose which one shows at any given time. And then, of course, to move on to the next scene, that's also taken care of by a button as well. It would be on start clicks, and then it just loads the game scene.
Okay, and now in the game scene, Lucas will show off his work with the camera controller and the secondary map screen.
Alright, so I was working on the camera, and so if you just drag around the screen with your mouse, you can see the camera moves. If you press tab, it switches to an overhead view. And I did that through Move Camera, which is just a simple script, just grabs the position you clicked and based on where your cursor moves to afterwards to have the camera follow. And then in toggle map camera, we just have my simple toggle between the two. It's just linked to both of the cameras, and when you press a button, it will change which one's open and which one isn't. And it's set up for when we have different UIs, so that the gameplay and map can both have different UIs.
Excellent, thank you very much. And now, show it one more time. I'll show everything in action and all the pieces working together. So here we have the tower firing projectiles at the enemies, spawning from the spawners, and walking along the path. Okay, and as for how we made all this and how it come together, we're tracking all of our work here on a shared Trello board, where we logged all of the urgent tasks, as well as tracking who was responsible for what, so that we could keep in touch with how things were going and any major victories or setbacks on our tasks. And as you can see, we've got a few more tasks that we're continuing to work on, that are bigger tasks that the project will grow into, and then all of the basics for this first playable are here in our completed column. So again, we've been Team Fake ID, and we're showing off our idle tower defense. Thank you very much.